Welcome to the premiere episode of SBJ Spotlight. Coming up, a Super Bowl unlike any other. Hosting Super Bowl 55 isn't what Tampa expected when it was awarded the game. How is the business community making the best of an unusual year? And what does it mean to be the first host city to have its home team in the game? We'll talk to the people on the ground in Tampa. NASCAR set to drop the green flag. The series opens its season ready to build on momentum from last year. President Steve Phelps talks about new owners, a new schedule, new formats, and dramatic new initiatives. All of that, plus our reporter roundtable discussing the biggest stories of the week in our premiere episode of SBJ Spotlight. Hi, I'm Abe Madcore. Thank you for joining us for the debut episode of SBJ Spotlight, a bi-weekly look at the biggest news in the sports industry through the eyes of top executives and deal makers, as well as the reporters and editors who cover the industry. Every 2 weeks, we will examine not just the key storylines in sports business, but also the people driving the deals and the decisions. We hope the show informs you and sheds light on the dynamic days in today's sports business. Now, like all of our editorial efforts, SBJ Spotlight is a work in progress, and we encourage your feedback and thoughts as we develop a show that we hope will be a must-watch among your media options. So let's get started. Up front today, Super Bowl 55 and all eyes on Tampa. Remember, Los Angeles was set to host Super Bowl 55 until construction on SoFi Stadium fell behind and the NFL shifted the game to Tampa's Raymond James Stadium. Just about a year ago, I was in Tampa and it seemed like perfect timing for the city to host the game, as it was booming with new construction, a spacious Riverwalk, and new hotel projects. But the challenges for the host city are much different than what it expected, and we're seeing a drastically scaled back event. SBJ's Ben Fisher, who covers the NFL, talked with Rob Higgins, head of the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, about hosting this year's biggest game.
Rob, as I know, you've been working on Super Bowl 55 for going on 3 years now, but it was just a few days ago that you learned that one of the two teams participating would be your local team, the Tampa Bay Bucks. So how has that changed the preparations, knowing that, one of your two teams isn't really traveling from outside of the market?
First off, we're really excited to be a part of history. Team Tampa Bay always loves to be a part of history, and so to have the very first team play in their home stadium for the Super Bowl is truly remarkable. It's something we've been talking about the potential of since this past summer. We certainly have kept it very top of mind throughout the planning process. But when it happened on Sunday, when they captured the NFC Conference Championship, you really start to understand what the event implications can look like. So we, just as we've done over the last 11 months, you take the information as it becomes available, such as that, and then you make adjustments. Obviously there's thousands of decisions that go in to hosting a Super Bowl, and the NFL has been fantastic partners through each of those decisions, but there's been one common driving factor for all of those countless decisions, and it's health and safety. So as the Bucks end up in the Super Bowl, we start to look at the increased level of excitement associated with that. So first and foremost, the primary event that's open to fans is Super Bowl experience presented by Lowe's. So we start to hone in from a messaging standpoint as to what that should look like and how that should be promoted. We start to look at the event's footprint, and we actually work to layer in additional real estate so that we have pressure valves when it comes to capacity. We're really limiting the capacity in all these parks, but we're really fortunate to have this nearly 3-mile river walk for the event. We're outdoors, and for the very first time, we're free. And so it gives us this opportunity to implement a lot of health and safety protocols around the event. So between the messaging, the real estate involved, making sure that we're able to maximize that and spread out. And then back to those protocols, the city of Tampa, Mayor Jane Castor implemented an executive order related to face masks in the outdoor special event zone. So within a 72-hour time frame from the Bucks winning, that was added as well. Because again, the primary goal here is to make sure that fans, both locals and visitors, can create memories that'll last a lifetime, but in a really safe fashion.
You know, we were talking about this earlier, and on one hand, in terms of general fan interest and volume of just general energy, having a local team in the game is undoubtedly a victory. But is there a counterintuitive downside to it, that these are fans who don't need to buy a plane ticket or hotel rooms too? I mean, how does this all net out? You've got a lot more people more easily involved in a Super Bowl week, but maybe not spending as much money as if they were coming from out of town.
Certainly, we're biased. We have a lot of passion for the team, as does our whole community. But you look at the potential media value around that and the historic nature of it. We knew for Super Bowl 55, the eyes of the world were going to be upon us, no matter what two teams made it. But when you think about the two teams that we got and the interest that's going to be around this game, whether it's our hometown Buccaneers and the historic component that we've talked about, or the Chiefs, who are making back-to-back appearances in Super Bowls in the Sunshine State, have a great national following. Our airport has added flights to Kansas City this past week. It is the perfect matchup, and we couldn't be more excited about it. Naturally, we'll follow along what the economic implications of it are. But as we start to look at like the key variables that we always focus on that are really indisputable when it comes to hotel visitor room nights and airline passenger traffic, as we talk to our partners across the hotel space and at Tampa International Airport, we're confident this will be the most room nights that our community has seen probably since the start of the pandemic. And then when it comes to airline passenger traffic, it's already more than double what the average has been in recent months as well. So the indicators are really there. It's a shot in the arm when our community needs it the most. I think there'll be naysayers out there that focus on maybe the events that aren't happening or the hotel room nights that aren't happening. We're going to focus on the ones that are, because our community's been through a lot these last 11 or 12 months, and the timing of this Super Bowl could not be any better. Yeah, I think I just would want to mention as well is I know, having been born and raised in Tampa, there's a lot of focus on the Bucks, but we're excited to roll out the red carpet for the Chiefs Kingdom. They have an incredible fan base, very passionate fan base. Like I mentioned, we've already seen, added flights as part of it. And we're excited to roll out the red carpet for them, make sure they have a fantastic experience. It's going to be one heck of a game.
All right. Well, I think that'll be it for now. Thanks, Rob Higgins. Good luck the rest of the way, and let's keep the rain away.
That's what we promised. So we're focused on the weather at all times. We've got 75 and sunny dialed up, and we look forward to everybody enjoying Super Bowl 55 week.
Thanks, Ben. We're going to keep you on camera and also bring in Alexis Melner, an editor of the Tampa Business Journal, a sister publication to Sports Business Journal. So we all know Rob Higgins, who remains very optimistic for Super Bowl 55 and in their planning and protocol scenario. I'm going to start with you, Alexis, because I see it as almost two stories. The half full story, because this is a big shot in the arm for the market, as Rob said, in a period of really hospitality declines and softness. But is there complete confidence in the region's ability to pull this off safely?
It's the proverbial big question of the day, because where we sit in this pandemic raises questions about that. There was a press conference last week with the three mayors, the Clearwater, Tampa, and St. Petersburg, the tourism officials, Santiago Carrata and Steve Hayes from the CVBs, and then Rob was part of that. And they were imploring folks to come, and that safety and public health were paramount in their messaging. But this industry, hospitality, hotels, is so critical to the state of Florida. I mean, if you think back to the middle of last year, when they were facing serious shortfalls in revenues, usually in a normal year, in the before times, the state would take in $9.6 billion. It's a third of the tax revenue, and then but hospitality and tourism has been really hammered, and so the good news for those industries is that this has long been a little bit of light in the darkness. It's not the same kind of light that they thought, but this messaging around the event infrastructure that we have here, and we've demonstrated that. We have the Republican National Convention and all of the work that Rob and his team has done to bring in college football national championships, and the partnerships with the NFL. There's a lot of pride in that, and that's being exuded. And to a certain extent, those who are being naysayers, as Rob pointed out, are getting a bit of short shrift. There's just this tremendous confidence, and that even a Super Bowl with 20% of what it could have been is a better than none. So there is that half full quality, but at what cost?
And for Ben, the question being optimism around the league's efforts. They're thrilled to be down in Tampa. They're thrilled to be hopefully concluding its season with a safe event and crowning a Super Bowl champion.
Well, right. I mean, everything that Alexis just said about Tampa is absolutely correct. But, the fact is the league's priority is executing the game and making sure it airs on CBS. So from the Park Avenue head standpoint, they want to be good partners and do their best they can with Tampa. But that is all distant priorities compared to making sure the game is legitimate and fair and safe and shows up at 6:30 on Sunday night.
On the flip side, the half empty part of that equation is that it's been 11 years since Tampa hosted a Super Bowl. And I've been in the market recently, and the area has transformed dramatically. The city is far different than it was. It was a really, you don't want to say a massive missed opportunity, but it certainly isn't the opportunity that the city had hoped for, Alexis.
Yeah, and that takes some reconciling. The changes here are around placemaking. The last Super Bowl in 2009, the Tampa Riverwalk did not exist. It's a gorgeous asset. At both ends now, there are cultural institutions, something called Armature Works, which is a traditional food hall that's very popular. And again, the range of businesses that were set to take advantage of this, who had it in their budget, are sort of struggling with that. At this time, and we would be bombarded with invites to events and primary events, auxiliary events, local corporate folks trying to activate this. But really, what we're seeing is bars and breweries trying to set watch parties. So there's none of that, and that's a real missed opportunity for a lot of folks. Although we're starting to see some of that attempts, and our reporting staff is trying to ask folks who are sponsoring these events, what are they getting out of it?
And for Ben, we've seen the number of hospitality events, Super Bowl parties, and just general number of industry professionals descend on Tampa drastically reduced. I talked to a number of team presidents. I couldn't find one that was going.
Yeah, and then my reporting mostly backs that up too. So there's a couple things going on from the national sports business attendance story here. First of all, major hospitality is basically zeroed out. But we knew that a while ago. A lot of the travel is curtailed. But I think something that came to mind as Alexis was speaking about the bars and the restaurants and the limo drivers is that it's not just the number of people, but it's sort of the kind of trip it is when you're a business person at the Super Bowl. It's a lot of discovery. It's a lot of, I'm not going to make too many firm plans. I'm going to show up on Wednesday. I know everyone I need to talk to is there. And I'm going to discover some new bar one night that's a great place for a meeting. I might take 6 trips across the city in an Uber in the afternoon just to jump from place to place. And now, not only are a lot of people not coming, the people that are coming are much more laser focused on a specific purpose for being there. And I think that takes a little bit of a shine off things too from a qualitative standpoint. I think people, even if you are going, you're much less likely to discover something new about Tampa you didn't know was there. Or to spend an extra couple $100 on an impromptu business meeting. And that's kind of a shame too.
Yeah, it's a great point just to add real quickly from Ben, because, this region where we are is meant for that jumping around. I mean, you've got such different placemaking. The experience out on Clearwater Beach, which has also seen a drastic transformation. St. Petersburg downtown has seen just there's a new pier there, which is attracting a lot of attention and visitor interest. And so that stuff is going to be missed here. And as you guys reported, and we all know, it's a big feat to land these events. And while we're known as a big event place, Title Town, there's some concern that when will we get it again, and why was our luck this way?
Right, because when you awarded the game, it felt like the perfect storm in terms of having the game hit the city that was in this renaissance. Certainly hasn't turned out exactly the way the city had hoped. Well, Alexis, I hope the week goes great down in Tampa. I'm sorry, I'll be missing it, and I'm sorry I won't be seeing you. Ben Fisher will be there. We'll circle back perhaps afterwards and see how the event went. But have a great week with Super Bowl 55.
Great being with you guys.
Coming up after the break, NASCAR President Steve Phelps talks about the challenges and opportunities of the 2021 season. That and more as SBJ Spotlight continues. Welcome back to SBJ Spotlight. Steve Phelps, thanks for joining us. Racing in Daytona starts February 9th, the Daytona 500 on February 14th. You had a great year last year, Steve, and you enter a new season, a new schedule, new formats, and taking your racing to 3 new venues. I don't believe it's been since 1969 that NASCAR has added this many new venues to its top series schedule. So you must be feeling pretty excited about starting this season.
Yeah, thanks, Abe. It's a pleasure to be with you. Yeah, we are excited in 2021. To your point, we've got new ownership. We've got a dynamic schedule, the most dynamic schedule we've had in over 50 years. Not only the 3 new venues, but Bristol Dirt, the Indy Road Course, coming back here to Daytona for the road course here as well. So it's pretty exciting. That's what the fans wanted. That's what our media partners wanted, and thrilled that we were able to put that out there.
We also did talk about new owners. Michael Jordan and Danny Hamlin with 2311. We got Pitbull with Trackhouse Racing. There's reports of Floyd Mayweather. You and I have talked frequently about when would we see new owners getting involved in the sport of NASCAR, and you've really seen it this off season. What does that give you?
It's really exciting. I think, if you look back to the social justice issues that happened and the actions we took last June, which I think if you look back 20 years from now to 2020, it's a seminal moment for our sport for sure. And I think the opportunity for us to bring new ownership, to bring new fans, could be centered around the actions that we took in early to mid-June. So to have a Michael Jordan come to the sport with Denny Hamlin 2311, to have Justin Marks and Pitbull come to Trackhouse to be racing, and then also kind of lost in the shuffle is Matt Tiff and his dad, right? Matt Tiff was a driver, had some medical issues, had to retire at a young age, but to have 3 new ownership groups come to the sport, I think bodes really well for us, and they're doing it at a time, frankly, before our next gen car comes in 2022, when we actually think there'll be even more ownership interest in coming to NASCAR.
You had such wind at your back at the end of 2020. When you sit with your leadership team and think about the 3 priorities for 2021 to keep your momentum going, what are they?
Well, for us, the first and foremost, obviously, is trying to keep our competitors and our fans safe when they come to our facilities. So we are eager, as all sports are, to welcome fans back. We were very aggressive in bringing fans back to this sport. So for us, it's more of the same early on, obviously. So the Daytona 500, we will have fans. In fact, we'll have a fairly robust number of fans, probably in the 30,000 range, plus camping. But we have to do it responsibly. So one of them is get all the races in and do it responsibly. The second is to continue to gain, frankly, gain share from other sports and entertainment properties. I know I'm probably not supposed to say that out loud, but we were able to do that last year. And so, we want to grow as a sport. We are growing as a sport. So it's to continue the momentum that we have there. And I think third is to really continue the efforts in the diversity, equity, inclusion space. We were a sport last year that was about action. The plans that we had in the back half of the year, so just not centered around, the Confederate flag or, the support of Bubba or having a listening, learning moment back there in Atlanta that we had. It's really, what are you doing next, right? So the three pillars for us in that space are, what are we doing internally? What are we doing with the industry broadly, and how we're going to do things with partnership? And, we have a strategic plan that we're executing against now. And I'm really, really excited about where that's going to take this sport. And then as we head into 22, we have a brand new car, which is going to be so exciting and phenomenal, better racing, it'll look better, be less expensive for our teams to race. It's just, it's a really exciting time to be in NASCAR.
I want to end with two quick hitters that impact you going forward. First, news that NBC made to shut down NBC Sports Network at the end of this year. What have they told you about how it might affect NASCAR in the short term?
Yeah, for us, I think NBC is a phenomenal partner with us. So, Mark Lazarus, Pete Bavacqua, and their team, they're world class, and they do it the right way. And, obviously gave us a heads up that this was going to happen, which we appreciate. We'll sit down with them and determine what that's going to look like for us, in the back half of our season, which is when they are broadcasting us. And then what's it look like for 2022? I don't have concerns. We are cornerstone property for them. They have said that repeatedly. The gains that we've been able to make with them over the last two seasons are significant. I would suggest that we are a property that is probably more important to both our media partners than we were this time last year, for a number of reasons. But yeah, we're excited about what the future looks like with both Fox and with NBC.
Yeah, and certainly you're locked in for a few years through 2024. Our sources are telling us that your major races will be on USA Network, which is a widely distributed network, and certainly could be good for you. Another major change, you're losing someone in the league office or the series office who certainly has a lot of responsibility. Jill Gregory moving to Sonoma. How do you replace Jill? What do you plan to do with her responsibilities?
Yeah, so it's something we're looking at right now. We wish Jill all the best. She's moving home to Northern California, which is where she's from. Unique opportunity with Sonoma Raceway. I think for starters, it's a great partnership for us to be able to continue the work that we've done with SMI to bring them closer into the sport, working more collaboratively with them. With respect to her job, right now her direct reports will report into me. It's a loss for us, right? She's a fantastic executive, and she's done some really good work for this sport. But she goes with our blessing. We're very happy for her.
But in the meantime, it sounds like more work, more direct reports directly to you. So you'll be busy.
Okay. I was looking for more to do, so it's a good.
I'm sure there's not enough on your plate. Well, you're going to have a couple of busy weeks. We wish you the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll be watching.
Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time.
I'm joined by our motorsports writer, Adam Stern, who covers NASCAR. Adam, listening to Steve Phelps, you really get a sense and a feeling of great optimism in his voice and in his message. It's just so different to hear that from a NASCAR executives compared to what we're used to. What was your takeaway from that discussion?
No doubt about it. I think what stood out to me was he's talked about when you look back 20 years from now, 2020 is going to be the year that NASCAR really made this sea change. What it did last year with the social justice movement, how that's going to help the sport out in terms of diversity moving forward. Now we've got some new ownership in that regard as well. and he's looking at more ownership to come into the sport in 2022. I think that really stood out to me about his optimism. There's definitely legitimate reasons for it. Other things as well is when you look at Daytona this year, planning on having 30,000 fans, he said, that just goes to show that NASCAR is going to continue to be aggressive with bringing fans back. They were pretty much the first sports property to do that last year, and so they've got a lot coming from that regard.
I mean, yeah, you hit on a lot of the things I agree on. You talked about the new owners that they can really get behind who are going to be able to share the NASCAR message across platforms. These owners, from my sources, very, very invested. Michael Jordan, very engaged. I have heard Pitbull is incredibly engaged. You're hearing other owners on the cusp of entering into NASCAR in 2022. There are others coming in. These ownership charters have real value right now, Adam Stern, and I never would have guessed we would be seeing these type of owners getting involved in NASCAR.
It's something we've been talking about for years in terms of when are we going to see this passing of the guard, this changing of the guard? When are we going to see new owners coming into the sport? We're finally starting to see it. But like you said, with a guy like Pitbull, they use this promise of, hey, this team Trackhouse is going to be about promoting STEM technology to really draw Pitbull in. It's something we've seen in some other sports as well over the years, of course, even in esports, trying to bring in celebrity owners to kind of really plus things up. But for NASCAR, this is a big boon for them, obviously having Michael Jordan. So it's definitely a big deal for them. But again, it sounds like more to come in 2022. And we haven't seen this before with charters being on the rise, with their value being on the rise like this before. So it's something when they first envisioned this system in 2015, they were hoping for this. They were hoping that you would want to have more owners eventually coming in, and we're starting to see the fruits of that.
So my final question here, Adam, what are you watching? I'm watching viewership numbers to see if they can continue to build on last year. I'm watching new young drivers. Last year with Chase Elliott, great story. Steve mentioned Daniel Suarez, could be a great story there. What are you watching?
Yeah, I think you really got to look out for a number of things this year. But when you look at NBC and what they're doing with NBCSN and that whole big move, where is NASCAR going to fit into that? Steve Phelps sounded very confident that NASCAR is going to be good to go into the future. But we're starting to enter the years where they're going to look to renegotiate this deal in the future, whether it's for 2025 or maybe even a little early. So this is something definitely big to keep an eye on. NASCAR is getting paid a lot of money right now, $820 million annually between NBC and Fox. This is the sport's golden goose. So the media situation is something to really keep an eye on. Obviously, the development of drivers, Bubba Wallace, he's put a lot of pressure on himself this season. His motto going into the season is no more excuses, and he's gone out to the media and said, I expect to have 2 wins this year. So 23-11 racing right from the get-go is going to have a lot of pressure. But like you said, Chase Elliott, defending champion, at such a young age, that's big for the sport. Seems like he's starting to come out of his shell a little bit, starting to use social media a little bit more, things like that. So all of this is going to be important for NASCAR because they had so many stars retire over the past 5-10 years. They need to start to build that star power back, and this is the start of that.
Yeah, it's just really interesting because right now what NASCAR has, great storylines. And we all know sports is driven by great storylines, and right now NASCAR has them. That'll be a fun season to watch. Coming up next, our Insiders Roundtable will discuss the storylines around the Super Bowl and give our predictions and people of the week as SBJ Spotlight continues. Welcome to our Insiders Roundtable. I'm joined by John Oran, Ben Fisher, and Terry Lefton. Thanks for being here today. Well, we got here. You know, credit to the NFL, getting a few days away from a Super Bowl. How did they do it, Ben?
Well, there was some standard business principles that came into play early on, and they include never make a decision before you absolutely have to. Do everything in the normal business routine that is possible, and don't cancel things unless you have to, and be aggressive, but make lots of contingency plans. But the real genius to keeping the NFL season going was the very, very detailed virus mitigation protocols that every team had to play by, and that changed and evolved with new facts over time. The Centers for Disease Control actually wrote a paper about some of the new groundbreaking things the NFL did in balancing the need to keep the season going while being protected. And the combination of aggressive testing daily, sometimes more often than that, with very closely watching high-risk contacts and knowing the difference between passing someone in the hall and eating dinner with them without your masks on, allowed them to find cases, isolate them, and keep the season on tracks while it's going. But one other thing that needs to really be said is that sometimes it's less complicated than we think. 2,500 players, several thousand staff, and other coaches really behaved all season. You know, with a couple of high-profile exceptions, the entire NFL, from Tom Brady to journeyman special teams guys, behaved and didn't bring the outside contamination into their teams. I think every one of them deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, Abe, from a media standpoint, it's hard to see how things could have gone better. They played a full season almost without delay. A couple of games got delayed. Ratings were down, but they were only down 7%. And in an election year, that's where the news networks saw record high ratings. That's pretty noteworthy. Also, if you compare it to other sports, 7%, any other sport would have loved that. Ad sales were brisk. The league opened up more windows for the networks to bring in more revenue. Networks got more creative about how and where to run ads. And from the TV network perspective, they had to rely so much on remote productions. And what that did is that forced the networks to figure out more cost-effective ways to produce games, that when they signed big checks for the next round of media rights, you know, anywhere where they can save some money, you know, that's a big deal. And they learned a lot from that this season.
Well, I want to bring in Terry Lefton into this conversation. So what can we expect in Tampa around hospitality and just doing business around the Super Bowl?
Well, I've been telling people, Abe, that to expect maybe 20% of the normal activity at a Super Bowl in terms of corporate hospitality, but I think I'm lying. I think it's going to be closer to 10%. Very few people, you know, it's just bad optics to throw a big party, to have even 10 or 12 or 20 people to dinner. There are corporations concerned about liability. I've talked to a couple companies that said, you know, they've been directed not to give away or even sell tickets internally because they're concerned about liability. So I would say it's going to be less, and less is not more. Normally I'm besieged by events and people having parties. This year I really had to work hard to find someone who, you know, thought they could put on a party successfully, and I only found one.
Well, Terry, I do want to come back to you, and this is for the group. What can we expect for the audience staying at home on Super Bowl Sunday from the CBS broadcast? Terry, a lot of narrative about advertisers who have opted out, what it means, and also the tone of some of the ads on Super Bowl Sunday.
Right. I mean, you know, normally it's the tried and true humor and animals, right? So what's the formula this year? We're going to see. I mean, some people are opting for more of a public service announcement. Some aren't. There's a fine line there, and I think we're going to walk it a lot that day. I mean, it's a bit of a misnomer to say people are sitting out. I mean, Budweiser's still there. It's just not for its flagship brand. It's for some of its other brands. Pepsi is not there for its flagship brand, but they're sponsoring the halftime show. They'll certainly be there then. And its Frito-Lay's salty snacks division is probably having the best year of any consumer products company. And they are there, of course. I've been told that $5.5 million price, which John could probably tell you is about the same as last year, has generally been holding, although no buyer wants to admit it. The category that will be missing this year is movie studios, and they are usually the ones that pay the full freight.
Yeah, there's no other place in television that's going to get about 100 million viewers. So yeah, that price is definitely still holding. CBS says they're virtually sold out, which you know, I think that basically means they have, you know, 1 or 2 spots left going into the game, which is relatively typical for the games. But here's the challenge for CBS and the CBS production. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, which of course means social distancing guidelines still rule the day. For CBS, the graphics are going to come out of New York. The replays are coming out of Houston. Like all the networks, they've been practicing remote production all through the season. But this is a Super Bowl. It's the biggest event in America every year. And CBS needs to make sure that its telecast reflects that. So you're going to see double the amount of robotic cameras. You're going to see the trolley cam. CBS says they're going to roll out something that they call the Sony Venice Cam, which is going to give it a real sort of video game look.
Right.
But with a limited crowd, CBS is going to have to pull out all the bells and whistles and make it feel like the big event that it is.
John, no one is having a Super Bowl party this year that you or I have ever heard of. So does that impact ratings at all?
Terry, I think it totally will affect ratings, and that's actually part of my prediction for later on in this video cast.
One thing I'm watching during the broadcast, and it's not the biggest deal in a financial sense, but I think it's important symbolically about the NFL's desire or willingness to do things differently in a pandemic, and that is the seat covers that have to cover the first 7 rows of Raymond James Stadium under the NFLPA, NFL virus protocols. During the regular season, there were these monochromatic tarps that were sold to team sponsors. They were widely panned for not actually being camera visible signage in most cases. But for the Super Bowl, the NFL is making those LED seat covers, and people are considerably more optimistic about the value that's going to bring to a Verizon or a Pepsi who might buy those. Still, I'm a little skeptical that the CBS cameras are really going to show those, but LED's bound to pop a little bit more. And like I said, there's really a couple of $1 million in make goods. It's not going to make or break anyone's day financially, but the always conservative NFL running up against a strong desire from the commercial side of the business to have more sponsorship assets, do things creatively. This is about as far as the NFL is willing to go, is LED seat covers at the Super Bowl. And I'm going to be really curious to know whether that breaks through to people and really drives any real value, or is, just like the regular season tarps too.
Well, let's, for all of you, a question. After the confetti falls and hopefully everybody successfully leaves Tampa, what are the key storylines that we should be looking for in the offseason? And John, certainly media deals have to be a part of that.
Yeah, Abe, I was going to jump in. I need to grab this one because it's all about the media deals. A few weeks ago, there was some optimism that the deals could be done in time that they could announce it during Super Bowl week. That appears not to be the case anymore. I'm told that all of the big issues basically have been agreed on, and they're just kind of going over a couple of other things. All of the TV networks are expected to retain their packages. ABC is going to join the Super Bowl rotation. The big question is big tech. How much of a presence is Amazon Prime going to take in the NFL? What is their package going to look like? Will it be just the Thursday package? Will the NFL try to carve out some other type of package? That still is up in the air to be decided. But the bottom line is that the networks need the NFL right now, and the NFL knows it. So I think that you can expect each one of the TV networks to pay right around $2 billion per year for the new contract, or more.
Big money for the NFL. Ben Fisher, what would you be looking at?
Well, this is closely related to those media deals, but I'm keeping a close eye in the next 4 to 6 weeks on the salary cap for the 21 season. And I know that might not be something on the business side we traditionally think a lot about, but it's an important indicator to what the owners think of sort of as the net pandemic effect of for the NFL right now. They agreed with the union before the season started that it wouldn't go lower than $175 million next season. And that's even a worst case scenario. That's still a 12% hit from this year. So the teams are in trouble no matter what. But there is some reason to believe, because of the boost in the media rights deals, if they can get those locked in, or at least a certain amount of certainty about what those look like, plus some optimism about getting fans back into the stadiums this year, that they might get something a little bit off that 175 floor in the 180 or 185 range. And if that does come to pass, that means the owners believe that the pandemic is more of a glancing blow than a serious wound to their long-term financial picture. But there's still a lot of unknowns there. And just the other day, Clark Hunt, the chairman of the NFL Owners Committee, said that's still very much a moving target. So we're gonna have to see what they think. But that's gonna tell us a lot about what they think of their big picture.
And of course, a higher salary cap, better news for players because more money to spend on contracts. Terry Lefton, what are you looking for in the offseason?
In this, perhaps the worst year in memory to sell marketing or media rights, we are going to find out what exactly the NFL is worth. John's already mentioned their media rights deal. I will also tell you that they have some significant sponsor deals to do in the offseason. soft drinks, beer. How much are they worth? How much more value do they have to add when every other big sports property has already added significant branding on the uniform or around the field or both? And as much as I hate, well, actually I love to contradict John Arand, I would tell you that the most significant issue within the broadcast contract is how much they are going to allow gambling organizations to brand within NFL programming. Are they going to give them 8 units per hour? Are they going to allow them to sponsor pregame, halftime, postgame shows? If they get enough in that, hey, every other sponsorship contract could be moot. But I'm looking hard at that, and I really, and like everything else with the NFL, they will set the bar for the rest of the sports industry for how much they let gambling in.
Terry, will it bring in revenue? Will the NFL get a cut of that revenue? You better believe it's going to be a pretty big part of these deals that are coming up.
Yeah, but I don't get the idea. There's a lot. I mean, there's violent disagreement at the top of the NFL on that. Last I heard, so I'm interested to see where they net out on that.
You know, in August, I don't think many of us thought we could be here ready to play a Super Bowl. I'm going to go around the horn. What was your most defining moment of the NFL season? Ben Fisher, start with you.
I think it was week 4 when the Titans outbreak was first developing and Tennessee's schedule was looking impossible. And then Saturday morning, Cam Newton tests positive just before the Patriots play the Chiefs. And this sense of dread came across the entire industry and every football fan said, oh boy, here we go. We got 3 weeks in and now this is it. But the NFL kept its head down. They rescheduled a couple of things with the Titans, got the weekend, and that sort of highlighted for the first time that just because an outbreak is bad one day doesn't necessarily it's going to mean it's going to get worse the next day. And the NFL set that standard, and we played it out the rest of the year.
I'll jump in here, Abe. For me, it was late December, one of the last weeks of the season. Amazon had an exclusive game. I panned the game. I thought that it didn't have a big game feel for its only exclusive game of the season. It just felt like a regional telecast that CBS would have put out. But here's the thing. Amazon loved it. The NFL loved it. More importantly, the NFL was happy that the technical problems were basically kept to a minimum. And what that told the NFL was that Amazon is a legitimate place where it can put a live game package. And you're going to see the fruits of that come out in the next couple of weeks when they announce their media rights deals.
To me, the most significant day, well, there wasn't a most significant day. There was a series of days this NFL season. This was the first season they played an NFL game on every day of the week. To me, that said it all about this season.
Real quick, as an offshoot, they played on a Friday?
Yeah, they played every day.
Wow, that's amazing.
Christmas Day was a Friday.
Yep.
Oh, is that what it was? Is that what it was?
They
That's
played
great.
Saturday late in the week.
That's a great fact. That's a
Yep.
great fact.
Yep.
Well, I'll have a cop-out answer. I think my most defining moment of the season will be Sunday when Tom Brady leads a comeback win for the Buccaneers. Let's go to our picks for Super Sunday. Ben Fisher, start with you.
Well, a gambler a long time ago told me to always bet on the better quarterback in a postseason matchup. And I think that's Patrick Mahomes by a hair. And that's the story coming out of here, that he's replaced Tom Brady on top of the heap.
I'm going to say it's a passing of the torch, Brady to Mahomes. And if I'm looking inside my licensing sources, which I have, that's the way the licensing industry's win orders have been trending, 20 to 30% more for Kansas City. So I'm going with Kansas City.
Sorry, Abe. The Chiefs are a better team. They're going to win. They're going to win going away. It's a 2-touchdown win.
Fair enough. I never base my prediction on if-win orders by licensees, Terry Lefton. I'm going to say
That's your mistake.
I'm going to say that Brady's going to be down by 3 points late in the game. Long drive to score a touchdown to Gronkowski. Buccaneers win. Brady comes back for another Super Bowl attempt next year. As we're going to do in every show on SBJ Spotlight, we'd like to end our Insiders Roundtable with one prediction and one person. So we're going to give our prediction today. First, I'm going to start with you, Terry Lefton.
My prediction of the week is, it kind of makes sense, but we'll start thinking about it now. After one of the most desolatory, non-hospitality oriented Super Bowls, LA, which was already going to be, it's 10 times bigger in population than Tampa, it was already going to be a blowout. It is going to be the biggest blowout Super Bowl of all time. I've already talked to agencies that have booked venues for millions of dollars. They've signed sponsors for parties, et cetera, in LA. Look for LA to be the biggest and best and brightest and glitziest Super Bowl of all time. Book your venue now.
We're already complaining about the traffic, Terry.
Absolutely.
Mine is about TV ratings. The Super Bowl, they got lucky. Mahomes versus Brady. It's a great matchup. Viewership is going to be down. I'm predicting about 95 million viewers, which is about a 5% drop. And here's the reason. The Super Bowl is an event that attracts people that don't like sports. It's a big event. This just doesn't feel like a big event. There's a Super Bowl week is so muted. The stadium won't be full. Nobody I know is attending any Super Bowl parties. There's nothing about this Super Bowl that's anything more than just the last football game of the season. And I think that's going to end up hurting the ratings.
Ben Fisher.
Well, I'll continue the pessimism train and predict that there will be material limitations on attendance in NFL stadiums in the 2021 season, despite the optimism about the vaccine rollout. They're just not going to get there in time with some extremely risk-averse local politicians.
Well, I didn't say we had to stay on the Super Bowl regarding our predictions and people. My prediction is the Pac-12 will hire someone with an extensive background in college athletics to replace Larry Scott. That's the direction the ACC took in hiring Northwestern's athletic director Jim Phillips to be its commissioner, and the Pac-12 needs to take the same approach. So yes, while they will interview leaders in media, Burke Magnus maybe, Randy Freer, maybe Karen Brodkin, at the end of the day, the Pac-12 will target someone with real and relevant college experience and select an accomplished athletic director or a commissioner from a smaller conference. So now we go to our person of the week. John Oran, who's yours?
CBS Sports executive producer Harold Bryant. This is Harold's third Super Bowl as executive producer, and he's still the only African-American to sit in that chair for a Super Bowl. Somehow, he has to make this game feel like a big event, which is going to be made all the more difficult without the big crowds and with a skeleton crew on site. And knowing Harold, he's going to be able to do it.
My person of the week is Matt Davis, the new head of sports at Anheuser-Busch InBev, because being the head of sports at Anheuser-Busch InBev is the biggest job in sports. And as I've been trying to convince John Oran for years, brand support networks, not the other way around.
Ben Fisher.
I have thought and written more about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the last 10 months than I probably did in my first 37 years on this earth. And that is largely doing of one man, Tom Brady. He changed a franchise overnight. And that's not to sell other players on that team short or head coach Bruce Arians, but we go where Tom Brady goes. And he's turned around a franchise so fast. I can't say enough about that.
I'm going to stay outside of the NFL world because my person of the week is John Swofford, who ended his 24-year run at the ACC last week. To me, his values and style mirrored that of the conference. Classy, dignified, polite, respectful. There was no forced charisma, as John Swofford was true to his own self. You know, he didn't have to be the loudest voice in the room, but he was quick with wit and a smile, and you could always trust him to do the right thing the right way. You know, John Swofford was the right leader for the right time for the ACC for over 2 decades. So well done to John Swofford. Well, that wraps up our premiere episode of SBJ Spotlight. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to your thoughts and comments on this inaugural show. So look for our next episode in 2 weeks, when we'll continue to explore the key stories in sports business. Until then, stay healthy and enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday. Take care, everybody.